a storm again. But I'm really happy to be here. And then I'm going to be monitoring the chat box for questions related specifically to like the more like the work that I did or how to do it or questions. So I will answer those questions while Rose goes through the whole training. So I really love Action Network. I'm a huge fan of all the work that they do. So I'm glad to be here and happy to always help out. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. So I want to ask folks, what situations do you think that peer-to-peer texting might be most effective? And it'd be great if you could add your thoughts into the chat box. So when is peer-to-peer texting most effective? All right, so C. Rhett said to answer, address questions, issues quickly. Randy Skinner says for canvassing. Student organizing, calls to action. When something is immediate, getting out the vote, reminders for events, increased turnout, confirming lobby day attendance.
One of the doctors, you can't have that on.
Mario, I think some people are unmuted. No, can you make sure folks get unmute?
The doctors, you can't do that. That's not right. I don't need to tell her.
Thanks, Mario.
And we're good to go. Thanks for bearing with us on these technical things. This is our first big training using Zoom, and so we're just getting the hang of things. All
right. So other things in the chat box, thanks, Mari, are to introduce the candidates a lot of folks don't know about, so down ballot candidates. Someone said for volunteers, protest rallies. And another person said we have a lot of members who don't have the internet or email access and need reminders for meetings. Melissa, any reflections you have or anything you want to add in here?
Yeah, these are all great. I would just add in that texting is also, it's really good just for relationship building, and that it's important that we remember that organizing, it's about the relationships that we build with people. And this is a really easy way to facilitate the relationship building.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, so what I want to do next is I'm going to show you how to do DIY texting. And what I suggest is that for this first round, you watch my screen. If you want, you can take notes. We'll also make sure you have a tutorial with tons of screenshots and also a recording of this training. So I'm going to show you how to do DIY texting, and then I'm going to actually do a second round where I go through the steps again, and I'll go a bit more slowly, and you'll get to click through your computer and your phone and actually send a DIY text. How does that sound? All right, so again, you don't need to be clicking through your computer this first round. You might just want to watch the different steps. Cool. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to go into our Action Network account. And we're going to create custom fields. We want to have a custom field for cell phone number, and we also want to create a custom field for SMS opt-in. So I hover over the blue Start Organizing button, the top right side, blue Start Organizing, and in that first column, under Details, I click on Questions and Custom Fields. And you may not see this click a list to get started if you only manage one group in Action Network. That's just an added step that I have to go through because I have a bunch of groups. So I am going to create a custom field for cell, phone number, administrative title, and name are both things we only see on the back end. Label is what people see on the front end, and I'm going to put cell phone. And then I like using placeholder to give people an idea of the format I'd like them to use. And we are going to create the question. I'm also going to add an SMS opt-in question. There's a few ways to do this. I'm going to use a checkbox. I'm going to write SMS opt-in. For the label, that's what people see. So I'm going to put a question like, would you like to receive text reminders from us? They can say yes, and the way it will show up on our spreadsheet is SMS opt-in. I'm going to create that question. And if you have questions about what I'm doing right now, Mari will be answering some of the more technical Action Network questions in the chat box, and Melissa's going to dig into some of those actual texting questions in the chat box as well. So send us all your questions. Now that we've created these custom fields, you are going to create an event in Action Network. That's not something that we're going to spend time doing right now. But if I had opened up to create an event and want to edit my form, I need to use the pre-built questions. So on the right-hand side, we are using pre-built questions. And
wow.
So I want to use cell phone. And I probably want to require this even. And then we are going to include SMS opt-in. And I wouldn't require that since the only checkbox they can choose is yes. We're going to save our form, we're going to publish it, and let folks RSVP. I want to go back to that edit form and just point out that, again, we're using our pre-built questions because we want to keep all our data across the entire system in this one field. If we scroll down, we have blank questions where you can add additional questions. This blank questions is not the section you want to use here, or your data will end up in all different fields and be a huge headache. There are ways to fix that if you get into that situation, but it's best to just use our pre-built questions. And I know that there is folks in the chat box who are writing that this is going quickly. Like I mentioned a couple minutes ago, I'm doing a walkthrough right now of the steps so that you can get an idea of the entire process. You should just watch my screen, and then I'm going to do a second walkthrough of some of those steps, and you are going to, I'm going to go more slowly and you're going to click along with me. So make sure you have those documents I asked folks to opened up on your computer, and I'm going to chat those again. Great. So now that we have created our event, we would go into the back end of our event. At the white toolbar at the middle of the page, we're going to click on Actions. I'm going to search for my event, and then I'm going to click the blue button that says Manage. And at the white toolbar at the middle of the page, we're going to click on RSVP, scroll down, and click on Generate. We're going to download our CSV. So that's how we're going to get a list of all of the people who signed up to attend our event. Now, the next thing we're going to do is create our text banking list. And I'm going to do this work in a copy. You all are going to make a copy as well. I'll show you how to do that when we get to the second walkthrough. And actually, let me delete the data I had just pasted in there. I'm going to go to our sample data. And I am going to copy all of this sample data. And I am going to paste it into my text banking sheet. The next thing I want to do is make sure that there's a text banker column. That's column A here. Give me 1 second. All right, so I've already included a text banker column in the spreadsheet, the sample spreadsheet that you can feel free to copy and use. And now I am going to create a dropdown. So at the top toolbar, I click on data. I click on data validation. I'm going to click on criteria, choose list of items, and put the names of all of our text bankers, Mari, Jeff, and Rose. I like to do on invalid data reject input because sometimes people will just, in some places write their first name, in some places write their full name, and I want really clean data. So I only let people use this dropdown. And I want to make sure that it's applied to all the rows. And then I am going to make sure that there's a response column where we can find out what people said in response. I'm also going to add data validation here. And I am going to include a series of different data validation options that I'm just going to copy. Give me 1 second. And so you can copy this too when we do our second walkthrough. And we go a bit more slowly so that everyone can actually do this as we go through. So a cell number. And I want to make sure that I drag that response down. Now I have 2 more columns, important notes for coordinator and notes for self. The reason I include this is because there are some things that I tell text bankers, I need to know these things. Like if someone says, I can't make it tonight, but I really want to get involved. That's awesome, and I'm going to follow up with that person or make sure an organizer from our team follows up. The second column is notes for self. And some text bankers, just like some phone bankers, really like to take notes like, this person, they have a cute little dog and they're taking their dog to the dog park tonight, so they can't come, but they want you to know that they really support the campaign. Those aren't notes I want to sort through, and you probably don't either. So I create a notes for self column for text bankers and then an important note that needs to come to me. All right. Again, questions in the chat box, and we're going to do a second go through where we go through a bit more slowly and you actually click along. In data training, this is called I do, we do. So the idea is that folks learn best when you watch once and then we do it together. The next thing that we want to do is assign text bankers. So we have about 25 people on this list. I'm going to assign each text banker to about 8 people. And I'm going to send Mari her text banking list. So this is Mari's text banking list right there. The first thing I am going to do is I'm going to open up our sample script. You all can use this in your own programs. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. And I'm going to compose an email. I am going to send this to Mari. And I'm going to make the subject something like text banking. Mari, rows 1 through 9. And at the bottom, I am going to list the numbers that I am sending Mari. And I'm going to go ahead and click send. Now, Mari is going to open up this email on her cell phone. And you here got a text reminder from Mari today about this training. All right. So Mari opens up this email on her cell phone and is going to highlight the script and click copy. So that script is copied to the keyboard. You only have to copy it once on most phones. The next step is hovering over the cell phone number and clicking on phone. And you might see something else on your phone, like click to send text or click to call. You're going to click on something like that. The text message is going to be opened. You are going to paste the script, which you just copied, and then you're going to hit send. And you've sent your first DIY text message. All right, so who is ready to actually start texting? All right, I'm really excited to show you how. So we are going to pick up at the part where you've already downloaded your data from Action Network. So I want you to go to the sample data spreadsheet. I see we have about 40 people in there, so we need about 30 more people in there. And I just sent you the link in the chat box. I'll wait for a moment while folks get that open. All right, I see folks joining. So indivisible workshops, why don't you give Mari the names, just the numbers? I skipped that step. That is, so we won't give Mari just the names, but Mari will be able to go and put the responses into our spreadsheet. And I'll make sure to go over that in this walkthrough. Melissa also wrote, it's because there isn't a name field in the text. And that's the difference between Hustle and Relay. And if your organization can afford Hustle or Relay, they're both great tools. There's also Mobile Commons and Call Hub, which we have integrations with. So those are a bit easier and but are not free like this method. Like Melissa says, this method costs you $0 as long as your text bankers have free texting. All right, so we got a lot of people to open the sample data. If you haven't, please open it so that you can follow along. Now, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to go to the sample text banking list that you see on my screen. I just chatted it into the chat box. And once you have that open, which a lot of people do, you're going to go to the toolbar and click on the first option, File. Are you with me? And you don't need to watch my screen as you do this. You might just focus on your own screen and listen to the instructions I'm giving verbally. So you've clicked on File, and now you're going to scroll down to the 5th option, Make a Copy. And you can just name a copy of Sample Text Banking List. Greta, that's right. Using this DIY texting model, you're relying on volunteers to use their own phone and their own texting plan. And it hasn't been a problem when I've used this method. I used to use it a lot at Global Trade Watch. And using this method, we usually got 100 to 250 people on each webinar that we hosted. So like webinars and briefings on trade justice. Now that you have open your copy of Sample Text Banking List, I want you to delete what's in that first row. All right, you've deleted what is in that first row. I want you to go back to sample data, and I need you to highlight and copy all of the names and phone numbers. So I just copied it. I'll wait while you all copy. And then we are going to paste it under first name, last name, and cell phone. And if I'm going too quickly right now, please write into the chat box just to let me know how we're doing on pacing. Mari, feel free to also jump in, or Melissa, I know that you two have audio, so if you think I'm going too quickly, just let me know. Or if I should speed up.
Will do.
Thanks, Mari. All right. So you've now copied and pasted first name, last name, and cell phone into your sample text banking list, or into your text banking list. Can you write into the chat box once you're finished copying and pasting it? Awesome, thank you. So many people are done. You have your text banker column already, you have your response column already, and you have important notes for coordinator and notes for self. For the text banker, we're going to click on cell A2, and then you are going to click on data at the toolbar. Data is towards the middle of the toolbar in Google Sheets. You are going, at the middle of the dropdown, you are going to click on data validation. I'll repeat that. You're going to go to the toolbar, click on data, and then click on data validation. Can you write in the chat box once you were able to do that? Cool. And now we're going to make a list of our text bankers. Only you have access to the document you just created, so put the name of 3 different people who might do text banking with your organization. And you are going to, so next to criteria, pick list of items, and then put the name of 3 different people from your organization who might do text banking. And write in the chat box once you've done that. Who is this your first time making a drop down in Google Sheets? I'm really curious. Cool, Wes. I'm glad that we're able to. Wow, so many people. It's your first time making a drop down in Google. This is going to make your data so much cleaner. Now, before you click save, on invalid data, that's the 3rd option under data validation, you're going to click reject input. And give me a second to check something. We have 26 rows here. So the first option, cell range, we're going to do template A2 colon to A26. Because we want this drop down not just to exist in A2, but to exist in that entire A2 to A26. Cool. So I want to make sure you saw what I just did. Cell range template A2 to A26 and click save. Let me know when you're done with that in the chat box.
And Rose, it looks like we got a question or request from Colleen who hasn't yet copied the phone numbers. Can you repeat that instruction?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paste the step-by-step tutorial with screenshots. And we'll be sending out that link in an email, and we will also be sending out this recording.
Perfect.
All right, so we're going to save this. And now we have all of our text bankers. Yay! And now we are going to create a drop-down in E2. Again, we're going to click on that cell, then we go to data, data validation. First section, cell range, we're going to do E2 to E26. We're going to choose a list of items, and I am going to paste for you what that list of items is in the chat box, so you don't have to come up with it yourself. And these are the list of items that I have found really useful to use. Give me a second to find it. So I've dropped it in the chat box, and I also am using it in my data validation. And then on invalid data, I'm doing reject input. So I'm going to leave my screen up, and let me know once you've selected all these options and you've hit save. Somebody said it was already in there, which is helpful. Great. Okay, so now we're going to assign text bankers. I would assign about 8 names to each person from your organization who's going to be doing text banking. And please write in the chat box once you were able to finish that. Awesome. A lot of people are done. I'll wait another minute. And I want to add in here, I think that Excel is actually the most important organizer text skill. I think it's really underrated. Not the most important organizer skill, but the most important organizer text skill. And you will find lots of shortcuts, like how to drag things, how to copy things really quickly, how to search your document really quickly. And a question I really love to ask folks is if there's something you want to do in Google, but you're not sure how, Google Sheets, but you're not sure how, is how many Google searches will it take to figure out what you want to do in Google Sheets? And usually the answer is like 1 or 2. So now we are going to go to our sample script. I'm going to chat the link in case you don't have it open yet. Please open it up. And you are going to copy these instructions. You are going to open up your email inbox. So copy the script and then paste it into an email. Now we are going to copy and paste my own texting list. I'm going to copy that. And an important thing is that when I paste it, I am going to paste in match style so that it doesn't show up in a bunch of boxes. I'll show you that again. Paste and match style. Let me know once you're done with that. And I'll answer a couple questions in the chat box while folks are pasting their list of numbers. So I'm actually going to type into the chat box with responses. So to avoid pasting the boxes, I'll show this one more time. I am going to right click. Do you see my pop-up? And then I'm going to click on paste and match style. It's a little bit different in each browser or each email program. You might have a place in your email that says edit, paste, and then edit, paste without formatting. Were you able to figure that out, Christia? And if folks are done with this step and ready to hit send, can you write done in the chat box? All right, Melissa just said that she found that 20 to 25, sending a text banker 20 to 25 names is best. So for those who it's not working right now, you can just type this one number at the bottom of your script. I am going to send this to myself. Please send this to yourself right now. And I'm going to make a subject line that is descriptive enough that we remember what this email is. So text banking, my name, and rows 1 through 9. CRET asks how large of a group can this be done, how large of a list can this be done with? Melissa said as large as you want. I would say I've done it with several thousand names. All right, go ahead and click send to an email address that you have access to on your cell phone. All right, let me know when you've gotten the email on your cell phone. In the chat box, let me know. Yay! All right, so you can see a screenshot of my phone. You are going to hover over the script in your inbox, hover over the script, and click copy. And let me know when that is finished. Cool. The next thing you're going to do is hover over that first phone number and figure out how on your phone you are going to open that in texting. So you might click phone, you might click to text, you might click. There's all sorts of things. And on some phones, you will have to copy the phone number, but typically not. So let me know once you've opened up a text box with that phone number. All right. And now you are going to hit paste because the text that is saved to your phone's clipboard is the script. And you're going to hit send. And you've sent your text message. So Justin asked if we have Apple Messenger, can we not just use that? Yes, that is a shortcut. But if you do not have Apple Messenger, then you do not have access to that wonderful shortcut. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the step that someone asked about, which is like, what do we do once people reply? I'm going back to our spreadsheet that we made, and let's say the person whose last 4 digits are 007 has written back. So, starting to go real quickly. You are going to search your document for the phone number that ends with 0007. You are on your computer, you are going to click Control or Command and click F to find in the sheet. And you're going to search for 0007. Let me know when that's done in the chat box. Right on. All right, so now in the response box next to 0007, I'm going to put down will attend because they texted me back and said they're going to be attending. Something to consider. So I have like 2 bonus tips right now that you might want to take note of. I would say this is not crucial to running a DIY texting program. The first is that you might want to give sample follow-up text to your text bankers. So what if somebody says, who is my, what if somebody says, can you give me more details on this webinar? And so you can have a text that's under 160 characters that people can follow up with. What if people say, I can't make it, but I'd like to get involved? You could have a sample text that your text bankers can follow up with. And that's just an added bonus. And the last thing I want to show you is that there is a really cool thing called pivot tables. And as long as you use drop downs and keep your data clean, you can make a pivot table that shows you really quickly. I'm going to actually make my screen bigger. It shows you really quickly the results by text banker. So how many people told each text banker, do not text me, maybe will attend, will not attend, will attend, and it can show you that quickly. And in our tutorial, we've linked to some more information on how to make pivot tables. It's a bit more of an advanced scale. So we're going to take, I think, 2 questions. And Mari, can you let me and Melissa know maybe 2 questions that have come through the chat box or that come through right now? And then I'm going to hand it over to Mari to wrap up.
Great. Yeah, so if you have questions, let us know. One question I saw that I thought was interesting was around any pitfalls or challenges of dealing with Android versus iPhone numbers.
Melissa, do you want to take that? I think you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Oh,
Yay.
can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Okay, great. I think so I haven't seen too many pitfalls. I think some issues, and one thing that's great because it's not a mass texting program is you also won't have an issue with it being the text being delivered to like Cricket and other kind of phones that are not contract based. So this is a workaround for that as well. I just think the hardest part is just as depending on how tech savvy your volunteers and organizers are. I just want to stress that this is good for your organizers too. That's just where, and giving people a chance that their first go around will take longer because as they're getting used to doing it. But once they're in and they see how easy it is, then the returns are later because you're like, hey, who can do this? And then like, boom, they're done. Because it really takes like 10 minutes or less to send out 25 texts. And then the timing is just like as people are responding. And that also goes to the question about how many in a shift. Since people don't respond, it's not like a phone call where you have the conversation immediately. Somebody might respond to like a text an hour later. It's more of like how many people feel comfortable sending and then being responsible for about handling the replies as they come in. So, I mean, maybe no more than 100. So like 4 batches of 25. So then they're only having to deal with responding to like 50 people. So I would just play it out, and just it also depends on the issue and the fierce urgency of the topic, like your response rate. So just kind of knowing how much your vols are going to have to do to respond to people.
All right, and then it looks like we
I
got
was going to say, I have had an issue on some of the less expensive Motorola phones. I used to have one, and it did not let me click to text. And so it was just a longer process where I had to copy and paste the phone numbers. And I would suggest having people who have a phone that allows you to click to text do this. The other thing I was going to say is that you can set boundaries. So when I've managed staff who are doing this, I have said that if someone texts you back after your workday is over, just wait until the morning to text back. And those boundaries are going to depend on whether it's staff or volunteers and what expectations are in your workplace or on your campaign.
Great. Any other questions from folks while we have Rose and Melissa on the line?
Cool.
Oh, we got one last question from Alex. How do you get the pivot table to view? And this is another one where I think it's a great question to Google because there's so many resources out there on Google Sheets and pivot tables.
That's right, Mari. I would like to just get a temperature check before I hand it back over to Mari. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like, I'm totally unprepared to go do this, even with the resource, and 10 being that you feel really confident that you know enough to go run your own DIY texting program with some practice and using the tutorials that we've shared. So 1 to 10, how are you feeling about being able to run a basic peer-to-peer texting program? Awesome. And if you're below a 7, let us know what you need from us, and we'll try to follow up with those resources. I'm going to hand it back to Mari to wrap up and talk about next steps.
Great. And it looks like we got a question from Jason Berlin in the chat window if you want to take a look at that. Rose and Melissa, while I wrap up. So thanks for everyone for joining us. Apologies again about some technical difficulties as we got started we will be sending out a recording of this training along with a handy guide that Rose wrote up and is in a Medium post. So both of those will be going out this afternoon. If you have any questions about anything we went over, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach out at partners@actionnetwork.org. And then the last thing we just wanted to talk about is some trainings that we have upcoming. So we can click over to the next slide and see that we have an email training coming up on this coming Thursday at 11 ET. And then we have some other trainings coming up. We do three regular trainings a month geared towards new users and folks who kind of want to brush up on their skills. So we have a data training that could be useful for some folks on the call. We have an actions training, and we have a email training. So sign up for the email training if you're interested. We're going to talk about deliverability. We'll talk about sending and targeting emails. And then I'm just going to drop the general trainings page that we have. If there are any other trainings that y'all are interested in, we try and do some interesting advanced trainings every month. So last month we did a deep dive on deliverability, and this week Melissa and Rose came on to do this do-it-yourself texting. So if there's any other trainings that you're interested in, I'd love to hear from folks. Again, you can email me, you can respond to any of the emails that I'm sending out today. So check out this link here for some trainings and you can sign up for stuff. So thanks again. And I'm going to leave the chat window on just so folks can continue to get their questions answered. So stay on for another minute or two. But we're going to go ahead and stop the audio and stop the recording. Thanks, Anastasia.
This is Rose. I'm going to go ahead and drop into the chat box a list of where you can find out more about our integrations.
Great. Glad to hear it, Jason. So Colleen, I just dropped a link to our training page here. So I'm going to drop that again, and you can check that out here.
And let's include that in the follow-up email, Mari.
That's a great idea. So yeah, I'll include that in the follow-up email, and you can check those up and sign up for trainings that are coming up this month and next.
And Mari, in the follow-up email, can we also include a link that lists out our integrations in case organizations have the budget for those options?
That's a great idea.
Mari, I think there's a question from Wes and Leslie that you might be best at taking.
Sure. Yeah, so that's a good question. We are a digital tool, so this is kind of a workaround. So you can, if you're tracking phone numbers for folks that you have in Action Network, you can layer the phone number on top of that data. So that'll be attached to their records. If you have folks who do not have email addresses, you can keep them in a Google Sheet. I think you want to think about making sure that your data is like generally pretty secure and that you are kind of aware. There's not just a lot of Google Sheets running around with people's phone numbers in them. So I think it's fine to keep it in a Google Sheet. Just be aware that it exists and that you're passing it on and updating it as necessary.
You can also create dummy emails in Action Network. So you could say that folks' emails are something like join plus, and let's say Amy doesn't have an email account, I would do join plus Amy at actionnetwork.org. You can Google around a little bit about that, but the idea is that any emails that go to Amy would just go to join plus Amy, but they would be addressed, so they would just go to join at actionnetwork.org, but they would say something like, hi, Amy. It wouldn't bounce. And so you could even, in Excel, you could use very quickly in Excel, you could create dummy email addresses like this.
All right, any other questions before we hop off? Thanks again for folks who stayed on. Great, glad to hear it.
Bye, everyone.